let's just touch on Azerbaijan. How pissed off were you that day?
Very.
The two Red Bulls going for it. Ricciardo fends off Max Verstappen.
We talked about it before the race. Both drivers had nodded in agreement that they'd give each other space.
If you're Christian Horner, you are not enjoying this for 1 second. Verstappen is in no mood whatsoever to yield to his teammate. They have crashed! They've gone into each other!
It was the low point, and I made my feelings very clear to both drivers.
We were fighting for positions, but yeah, of course, you never want to crash with your teammates.
I was sure of what happened. You know, I was sure that, you know, I wasn't the cause of it. I was kind of made to feel guilty. This year, I'm going to be out of contract. And I think, what am I going to achieve doing one more year with Red Bull? You know, I could be happier having a fresh start.
Bernie, Flavie, come here.
Come on.
Bernie, come here.
Oh, back you go.
He got kicked by a donkey yesterday. Come on. Look what we got.
Look who's here. Max and Daniel.
Yeah.
They are very similar to a couple of donkeys on occasion.
Sometimes they love each other and sometimes they butt each other.
In fact, managing donkeys is sometimes easier than managing drivers. All these drivers, they all have slight insecurities, like any great sportsman. Life is being made difficult at the moment because we've got this exciting emerging talent in Max Verstappen. Max isn't yet 21, so I think that they're just drivers at different stages in their career. By the time we get to the August break, I'm going to be ready for some time off.
Yeah.
It's going to be an important year for Daniel in his career because he's very much at a crossroads. We'd love to extend the agreement with him, but do you know what? If he doesn't want to be here, that's Formula One. It's a big boy sport.
So what's coming up in the next few races?
Monaco next race.
So is this one of your favourites?
Yeah. Be good to see Max get a result.
Yeah.
So they want an answer from us as early as possible.
Who's out of contract then?
Lewis, Kimi and Valtteri.
If Valtteri has a bad year, how long are they going to give him before they make a decision about whether they want to keep him?
Since joining Red Bull, it's the first time I've ever had to look for another contract or kind of been in a position to negotiate, to have discussions with other teams.
What's being weighed up by us now is whether or not we make one of those tactical moves somewhere else. And the question is, obviously, where?
I guess the only thing on my mind is get results now, because the better I do, the better offers I'm going to have probably from other teams. Obviously want to be fighting for the World Championship.
Based on things as they are right now, Merck and Ferrari would be the two obvious candidates, but, you know, anything can happen.
Yeah. I don't really want the rush right now.
While Red Bull Racing are nowhere near the competitive force that they were when they won 4 World Championships in a row, I think that pales into insignificance when you see where Williams are compared to where they were at that same point in time.
Ready? Boom, 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 boom. Monaco's faster than our car.
Didn't hear that, Nate.
So I am Claire Williams, and I am the Deputy Team Principal of the Williams Martini Racing Team.
Arms up. Good boy.
Williams is everything to me. It's been in my family throughout my whole life. Started by my dad, Frank Williams, back in 1977, so we've been racing for 41 years now. It became an enormous success story of the 80s and 90s. Winning 16 World Championships, 114 races, and all as a small independent team started by a boy with a dream when he was very, very young. My youth was spent helping out around the team. So it really is everything. It's a big part of what defines me. But I do believe since I took on my job back in 2013, the world in which we operate is a very different place to when Williams first started.
They were up in third in 2014 and 2015, but they've slowly been slipping back, and that's a hard thing to turn around.
We face much greater competition, we face much more challenging circumstances in which we have to race and operate our team. But sport's not supposed to be easy. Winning isn't easy, and that's why it's so amazing when you do, because you deserve it. And at the moment, we don't deserve to win. We've got to put the work in if we're going to change that.
In just 5 years, they've gone from fighting for pole positions and podiums to scrapping to get off the last row of the grid.
You know, there's always a lot of criticism, but you can't listen to it. You just have to keep going and believe that what you are doing will make changes.
Now Williams are going to be getting to the stage where they're trying to work out if there's an ingrained problem they need to change. Do they need to change their whole outlook?
This car has not been performing as we expect.
The first few races, we were literally the slowest team on the track.
I've been given a wonderful opportunity, and I only agreed to do it because I thought at the time that I could help turn the business around. To be very clear, we aren't going down that road of a B team. If any of you that know me well would know that it would be over my dead body. You will never read in the press that Williams has turned itself into a junior team or a B team. I've got this whole history that I need to protect. If under my watch that were all to go horribly, horribly wrong, it would be my fault.
Monaco looks like it could be a painful weekend. The car is clearly the slowest in the field, and more than just Formula One fans watch Monaco because it's bonkers.
Monaco is my favourite race on the calendar. It's the most...
Monaco's the big one. It's where all the glitter artsy are. You've got the boats, the harbour, the celebrities. Just exudes money, glamour.
It's just a lot of cool shit in a small space.
Monaco is Monaco. It's the oldest race on the calendar. It's the prestigious one. So much heritage, so much history.
It's an absolutely incredible sight. The cars roaring around the circuit at fantastic speed.
The track is the same that it has been at pretty much all 76 Grand Prix. All the greats have raced and won in Monaco. Fangio, Graham Hill, Ayrton Senna. The pressure and the prestige that goes with that race, if you come out on top, winning that Grand Prix, it's bigger than anything else.
From a Red Bull perspective, they'll have targeted this from the very start of the season. Their car will be suited to the Monaco Grand Prix circuit. But Daniel will want to stand out because they seem to be putting more and more weight behind Max Verstappen for its future.
Well, Max has got that sort of magic dust around him. He's the next generation coming through.
I like that one.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, how much do you think that boat cost? 1.8.
1.8.
Because I've been on that one in Ibiza.
Oh, yeah?
Honestly, you lose yourself on the boat. Like, compared to, like, you have to call other people, like, where are you on the boat?
Mate, it's like a cruise ship.
My name is Max Verstappen, driving for Aston Martin Red Bull Racing in Formula One, and I'm also the youngest Formula One winner. So I live in Monaco. For me, it's just like I'm at home, really. Just a bit busier. You're used to, like, hotel during a race weekend, so...
You have to do your own clothes washing.
Yeah. Nah, luckily my mom is here, so...
What would it mean for a driver in Daniel's position to know that this kid who's come in as the young buck is promised more than he's on? Yeah, it's going to hurt.
I mean, look, they've invested a lot in Max. One thing that Red Bull love to do is create headlines, break records. If he could be the youngest ever world champion, that's a dream scenario for them.
There's clearly going to be tension within the team. They're both fighting, in a sense, for #1 status. Verstappen has the contract in place. Daniel's looking for a new one. And that will be playing on Daniel's mind.
Max is clearly one of the big names of Formula One for the next 10 years, but Daniel is still hugely important to Red Bull.
I just want you to know that there are no #1 drivers here. You know, nothing would give us greater pleasure than to see him achieve the World Championship in one of our cars.
Whatever he says, I don't believe that's the relationship, and I think Max is their chosen star for the future.
Yeah. And I hope he feels he's got a huge amount of support in the team. You know, there's no pressure to have the youngest world champion or anything like that.
If they really want me, they need to put something awesome in front of me and snap me up.
Super. Thank you. See you on Friday. Thanks very much. See you later. So much. See you on Friday. You're welcome.
I think Monaco is going to be a very tough race for us.
I hope that our little cars get through it in one piece and we get some points. If we don't start scoring points, that gap's just going to widen to a point where we're not in the mix anymore. We'll finish 10th.
No one wants to come last in any sport, but particularly so in Formula One. And it's all to do with money. There's a sliding scale of payments, and being bottom means they get the smallest slice of pie.
The Ferraris, Mercedes, they're all spending north of $300–400 million. But our budget at Williams is somewhat smaller than that, at about 125 sterling a year.
To win in Formula One, you need money.
This sport requires financial help, and that financial help has to come from somewhere. I'm Lance Stroll, I'm 19 years old, and this is my second season with Williams Martini Racing.
Yeah, I think it's no great secret that Lawrence has made an investment based on his son having a seat. I don't think it can be underestimated, the impact that that can have.
Wait, how are you? All right.
But I also have to believe that he has the best interest of the team at heart.
I know I'm born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I've seen paid drivers in the past not deliver. But when I look at my rookie season, I proved a lot of people wrong, finishing on a podium, starting on a front row. Those are all big achievements, if you ask me. I strive to be the best I can be.
This is all the same, right? This hasn't been resurfaced.
No, well, supposedly it's from 7 all the way around to 15.
Yeah, this one caught out a couple of people.
Yeah.
Lawrence is a businessman, and you don't keep throwing your money at something that's not working for you. So for as long as the team provides the basis for his boy to be able to show what he can do, then you can see him still being a part of it. But the second that doesn't happen, you can be sure he's going to take his money somewhere else.
This year with Williams on and off the track, it's been a frustrating experience, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, there's hopefully better times ahead.
It's the team's last chance to get their car set up right ahead of qualifying this afternoon.
You know, we've got a good package here. The drivers are in great shape. You know, they both enjoy this track. The car looks super.
Danny, how does it feel?
Work yourselves back into this chapter.
Still some unfinished business.
And you come here
to make the difference, you have to risk it a bit more.
Red Bull are the favorite. You guys are the favorites. Do you feel as such?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to get started.
Our car works well in Monaco because Monaco has the least straights of the year, which means horsepower isn't everything. So therefore we're able to compensate with a great chassis and give the drivers confidence they can run up close to the barriers, they can extract that lap time from the cars.
If you're Red Bull right now, you really want to see Max Verstappen win this race because you've invested in him, you've put your faith in him for the future, but it's so hard to overtake. You've got to do it in qualifying, and that means pushing to the absolute limit, and that's why Saturday is spectacular here.
I've always come into Monaco fired up. It's the most difficult circuit on the calendar. It's a circuit with the smallest margin for error.
I think a race win is definitely possible here in Monaco. I've been, I think, driving a lot better. I've been in qualifying really strong compared to Daniel as well. I'm feeling good.
Finally, a chance to see if Red Bull really are in fighting form as Max Verstappen heads out for practice.
Max Verstappen makes his way onto the track.
This will be a good indication of what he'll be able to do come qualifying this afternoon.
Well, Max has got that sort of magic, beautiful driving style.
It is a tough track. It's always, you know, bumpy, low grip. If you have a little slide, you can end up in the wall.
Max Verstappen on the fastest lap of this session so far.
You won't meet any driver hungrier than Max Verstappen. He wants to be fastest on every session of every race. It's fantastic.
Oh, someone's hit the barrier. It's Max Verstappen. One of the favourites for pole position later on this afternoon has absolutely clobbered the barriers.
You just think, fuck it. He was just pushing too hard too soon and made a silly mistake.
A red flag for a Red Bull. It's a red flag. Stay to the left-hand side.
He's given his team a massive repair job to get that car ready for the qualifying session.
It is painful because if it has a bad outcome, you are even more angry.
You've got a pretty small window of time of about 2 hours to get the car turned around and into qualifying. I've got confidence in the mechanics, but there was nothing guaranteed.
Max Verstappen's chips scattered right now. What are the odds of his car making qualifying after his earlier crash?
Arguably the most exciting qualifying session of the season is here in Monte Carlo.
Qualifying today, very, very important.
Lance Stroll in the Williams, heading out for his session.
Loud and clear. Thank you, Show, and Luca on entry radio check.
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
See how we go this afternoon.
Lance struggled moving around a lot in his seat in the first session. He was moving around too much, so anyway, trying to fix it.
Tell me that.
It hasn't happened before. No, it's the first time all season.
Okay, well, let's hope it's a
I think the belts were just getting loose all session.
Let's hope it's a one-off then, Lawrence.
Target for now, plus 30 seconds, taking temp out of the rear. It's quite busy into the corner now, everybody on slow laps.
The frickin' headrest is loose. No.
That's okay.
Just fix it. After.
Okay, we'll do it next time around. Okay, nice, we need 4 tenths, so we need a 12.9 to get through, okay?
I'm really suffering with traction and all those kind of things. Oh, this is on the edge, so got too much understeer, guys. I can't go quicker like this.
And that's a 1:13.3 for Lance Stroll. Another disappointing performance for Williams. They'll be starting towards the back of the grid on race day.
Breaking news from Red Bull. Max Verstappen, one of the favourites to take pole this afternoon, out of qualifying before he even gets going.
We managed to get the car turned around, but unfortunately when firing up the engine, suddenly we saw a big oil leak from the gearbox. There was no chance then to make the qualifying.
He's a very, very fast driver. We know that. That's not within any doubt. This place bites hard if you abuse it, and unfortunately, there's no more brutal lesson than what he's just had. So, you know, I'm sure that he's smart enough to hopefully learn from that.
All Red Bull's hopes now rest with Daniel Ricciardo. Can he beat Ferrari and Mercedes to start in pole position on race day?
Lewis Hamilton is flying. Here comes Vettel.
Got P1, 6 tenths quicker than everyone else at the moment.
Is everyone slow behind?
Yeah, everyone's slow behind.
Hulkenberg behind is slow. Raikkonen also slow behind.
Grid position is everything. If you drive in the middle of the road in a race, it's almost impossible for the car behind to be able to overtake. So the intensity of qualifying becomes even more important.
The streets of Monaco, it's so tight. Everything's coming at you so fast.
Max Verstappen watches on, he can do nothing.
You are now quickest by 2 tenths.
Okay. Sebastian Vettel has taken front row at the moment as we go on.
This is going to be so close.
Daniel Ricciardo, who was on pole, of course, here in 2016, crosses the line now. Back to the 110s. What a lap! Pole by a country mile.
And that is pole position. Nice job, mate.
Fuck. Yes.
Delighted for the pole, but we should have had 2 cars up there, and It's frustrating not to have both cars on the front row of the grid.
All right, that's 50% done. Let's finish this shit tomorrow.
Until I lift that trophy and feel that weight, I won't be completely satisfied.
I don't think Daniel's putting a foot wrong at the moment. If the team have got question marks in anybody, it's why they've spent so much money on Max. Max put it in the wall, trying to prove to the world that he was quicker than Daniel. And he sacrificed his entire weekend for what? For nothing.
Daniel is starting to stand out as the more consistent and the more stable option that Red Bull have got. So if Daniel then delivers again here and Max misses another opportunity to win, you wonder if doubts will creep in at Red Bull about whether they've put their money behind the right driver at this stage.
In percentage terms, how confident are you of keeping him?
It's always difficult to put a number on these things, but you know, we're very, very happy with Daniel. He does a great job in the team. He's a popular member in the team, and there's a desire for us to retain him for next year.
This is what it's all about when it comes to motor racing. There is one place to be today, and that is here in Monte Carlo. Daniel Ricciardo in pole position. Sebastian Vettel in second. And because of his disaster in qualifying, Max Verstappen will start right at the back in last place.
Max, how are you doing this morning? Not so good. Yeah.
If we could get points on one car, that would be a great achievement. But if we could get both cars, even better. If there was a huge great pile-up at the start of the race and our cars just went through, one can only dream, can't you?
10 less than P3.
The waiting sucks. I just want this race to start already. I feel this year with the car we've got, you know, since 2016, it's my best chance to win. Basically, the win was taken from me through no fault of my own. Got the first pole position of my career. I had a comfortable lead.
Daniel Ricciardo is looking set to win the Monaco Grand Prix.
Okay, down. Box this lap, please. Box this lap.
Team call me in and come in the pits, and there's no tyres there. And it's like a shit show.
They haven't got the tyres ready. The tyres aren't ready.
The pit stop, instead of being 3 seconds, it was more than 10.
Ricciardo is sat there waiting.
I come out the pits and literally see Lewis just come past me.
Hamilton now leads after a pit stop that saw Daniel Ricciardo sat stranded waiting for his tyres.
So, lost the race.
Right now, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything. I want to get out of here, to be honest. This one hurts a lot.
2018. This is my time. It's my fucking time.
If he can go and win this race and beat Max, that tells Red Bull that they need to put their faith in him, but that might not be his main priority. He might think, I need to show myself as a great option for another team, a Mercedes or a Ferrari.
The 2018 Monaco Grand Prix. It's time to get down to the serious business.
As we count down towards the start of this race.
The driver can make the difference around this track.
The story so far, Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull has dominated the whole weekend.
Every single practice session, every single qualifying. Verstappen had the chance for pole, but it's 20th and last for the Dutchman. What can Ricciardo do from the front of the grid?
Will good fortune shine on Williams? Lance Stroll in 17th place. The grid is cleared in Monaco. Daniel Ricciardo on pole position.
It's a tense moment as the lights go on.
Vettel is trying to attack into turn 1, but he's not quite close enough. Ricciardo leading, but Vettel is very, very close to the back of him.
gap behind Vettel, 1.1.
So far, everything feels alright.
Max Verstappen already got past grosjean and Magnussen. Is he going to try and launch one? He is down the inside on Lance Stroll.
Nice move, Max. Well done.
Yeah.
With this pace, he can just keep picking these off one by one. Lance Stroll fighting with Leclerc. Oh, bit of contact.
The problem with the car, something happened.
The front wing is damaged.
And so it's a front wing change and the tyres.
Daniel, you're doing a really good job, mate. It's really good stuff. You just need to keep it smooth. I got it, buddy.
Ricciardo still leading Sebastian Vettel.
And box, Daniel, box this lap.
Remember the pit stop that cost him victory here in 2016. Relieved of that pit stop went okay.
Yeah, no problems this time around for Daniel Ricciardo. He's still smiling this afternoon.
Just keep it focused, mate. Keep it focused.
Verstappen gets a really good exit. He's going to go for it. Of course he is. He's Max Verstappen. Yes! Verstappen moves up into 9th place.
There's a problem.
You can see it slowing down dramatically.
I see trouble brewing.
Losing power. Let me know if I can do something. Fail one, fail, fail one, fail.
This could totally change the race.
Will it get better?
Negative, Daniel, negative.
The MG UK failed. That usually means the engine is screwed. It's 99%, you have to retire the car.
The minute Daniel Ricciardo makes a mistake, Sebastian Vettel is all over him.
This is like a moment of defeat, a moment of helplessness. Part of you just wants to rip the steering wheel off and just throw it. How is this happening?
How long can Daniel Ricciardo keep Sebastian Vettel behind him? Can he keep him behind him?
We know it's hard, but keep it focused.
Yeah, I got no power though.
To finish first, you have to finish. Lance Stroll is 2 laps behind the race leader now.
The brake pedal's going really, really long.
Concentrated on turn 18.
I don't understand. It's ridiculous. What's the point of even racing right now? Stroll's just struggled with the car all weekend long.
I tell you what, it never rains but it pours. For Williams at the moment, it is pouring.
Vettel now pushing harder.
10 laps of focus, 10 laps to go.
And this problem that Daniel Ricciardo has had for so long, still being managed.
It was just totally intense because he couldn't get beyond 6th gear because it just wasn't the power.
You've got a feel for him in that cockpit at the moment. His nerves are going to be shredded to pieces.
Keep putting pressure, you're doing well. Head down till the end, you will make a mistake.
It's out of your control, but then you think if I start playing the sad story, then it's not going to help.
There are 3 laps to go. Daniel, you're doing a really good job, mate. Very impressive.
I'm thinking, we're leading the Monaco Grand Prix. I don't care if this engine goes bang.
Yeah, we can win it, so let's fucking win it.
It's a big lock-up for Vettel. Can he get it stopped? Just about. Stoffel Van Dorn isn't in the battle for the lead, but he's come out between the 2 leaders after his pit stop.
It's unbelievable what this guy is doing.
I would imagine Ricciardo is starting to smile just that little bit more. Ricciardo starts his final lap. You can't deny he really does deserve it this weekend. Today in Monte Carlo, it's redemption day for Daniel Ricciardo.
Daniel Ricciardo, you are our hero. Unbelievable. To see your car and driver cross the line first is like no other feeling in the world.
It's very difficult to come to terms with when you're not winning. We haven't won a race now for nearly 6 years. That's a long time. When should I go, actually, do you know what, maybe I'm not the right person to do this. Am I good enough to do it? Do I have the capability?
There they are. You want to hold it? I'm trying to find you. Here you go.
It's the most proudest parents in town.
Well
done, you.
Thanks, man.
That was class.
I'm not sure whether the price has gone down or up.
Amazing, amazing. He did an unbelievable job today, eh?
Yeah, it's just really big.
It'll come, you know. So be happy for your teammate today.
Yeah.
Celebrate with him. You know how this business is. It's up and down.
I should have won that race, and then seeing the whole team happy, it's hard because you're standing there. You have to try and smile and be happy because the whole team is happy. But yeah, for me, it was definitely the worst moment, and I was really not happy. I could literally break down the whole energy station by myself.
I was so thrilled because I knew what it meant to him. Yeah, it was the best.
I want to be the best in the world. I believe I've got the talent and I put in the work. Without getting arrogant, I'm certainly going to have some serious offers on the table.
Comments from Red Bull involving the engine has been the step too far. The red line crossed.
That is a big, big issue. We've been paying to fly in first class, but ended up with an economy ticket.
We need to see that people respect us.
The relationship with Cyril's been difficult.
Every single race win that Red Bull had was with Renault.
He's an emotional guy. You never know what you're going to get.
Crunch time.
And it means a lot to be racing against Red Bull.
We need to make a decision.
The winter of 2023 gave way to a quiet expectation of continued dominance. In the world of Formula One, the previous season had been defined by a level of supremacy that the sport had rarely, if ever, witnessed. Red Bull Racing had transformed the grid into their own personal exhibition, winning 21 out of 22 races. They had shattered records for the most victories in a single year, the most podium finishes, the most poles. converted to wins, and the largest winning margin in the history of the sport. To many observers, the rest of the field had been made to look entirely ordinary. Yet, those who understood the volatile nature of elite motorsport knew that stability was nothing more than a passing illusion beneath the surface of absolute triumph. The gears of change were already turning. The truth remained that in a sport defined by ruthless competition, no one was ever truly safe. Over half of the grid lacked a signed contract for the 2025 season, turning the upcoming year into a brutal exercise in survival. For any driver who lost their seat, the consequences were absolute.
It was a world where
a career could end in a single afternoon, where the whispers in the media paddock could destroy a reputation before the cars even hit the track. The first major tremor of the 2024 season arrived before a single engine had been started. It was early February, a mere 17 days before the opening race in Bahrain. The winter had been busy with the usual engineering developments and fitness regimes, but one piece of breaking news instantly eclipsed every other storyline. In one of the most significant bombshells in the history of the sport, Lewis Hamilton announced that he would be leaving Mercedes at the end of the year to join their arch-rivals, Scuderia Ferrari, for the 2025 season. For Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, the news was surreal. After 12 years, 6 driver championships, and 8 consecutive constructors titles together, the relationship between Lewis Hamilton and the Silver Arrows had felt permanent. When Hamilton first delivered the news, it seemed almost impossible to comprehend. The image of the 7-time world champion wearing a red racing suit was something few in the paddock could have pictured. The timing of the announcement, occurring before the new car had even been driven in public, signaled a long and potentially awkward 24-race divorce.
it was
A public declaration that Hamilton no longer believed Mercedes could turn their fortunes around quickly enough to deliver a championship-winning car. The immediate casualty of this seismic shift was Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard, who had played a pivotal role in keeping Ferrari competitive and was the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race in 2023, suddenly found himself displaced. He had not been prepared for the news, and the realization that he would be forced out of the Scuderia at the end of the year was a heavy psychological blow. Yet, rather than letting the disappointment consume him, Sainz resolved to use the remaining 24 races as a grand audition, determined to prove his worth to any team with an open seat for 2025. As the teams gathered in Bahrain for pre-season testing, the focus of the paddock shifted from the driver market to a developing crisis within the reigning champions. Red Bull Racing had launched an independent investigation into their team principal, Christian Horner, following allegations of inappropriate behavior made by a female employee. The media scrutiny was immediate and intense. Horner denied the accusations, but the cloud over his leadership threatened to fracture the unity of a team that had looked completely unstoppable just months prior. Every press conference became a minefield of carefully worded statements and legal boundaries. When the independent investigation concluded and dismissed the allegations, many within the team hoped the matter would be resolved. Instead, the situation escalated dramatically. An anonymous email containing a cache of leaked messages and photographs was sent to team principals, journalists, and high-ranking officials within the International Automobile Federation. The leak was timed to cause the maximum possible distraction on the eve of the opening Grand Prix. Horner remained defiant, maintaining that the leaks were from an unknown source and intended solely to destabilize the team. Yet, the internal tension was clear. Jos Verstappen, the father of the reigning world champion Max Verstappen, publicly stated that the team was at risk of being torn apart if Horner remained in his role. Max Verstappen found himself caught in the middle, attempting to defend his father's outspoken nature while maintaining his focus on defending his title on the track. When the lights went out for the first race of the season in Bahrain, the off-track noise was temporarily silenced by the roar of 20 engines. Max Verstappen delivered a characteristically clinical performance, securing pole position, the fastest lap, and a dominant victory to lead a Red Bull 1-2 finish. For Carlos Sainz, the race was a vital statement of intent. Driving with the knowledge that his time with Ferrari was limited, he delivered an aggressive and determined drive to secure third place, passing his teammate Charles Leclerc. Along the way, for Mercedes, the opening race was a sobering reminder of the gap they still had to bridge. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton struggled with a lack of consistent race pace, finishing well down the order. The realization that they were facing another difficult season hung heavily over the team, even as Toto Wolff began the complex task of finding a successor to the most successful driver in the history of the sport. The competitive order appeared established, but the sport quickly proved its capacity for sudden, unpredictable drama. Just 16 days after the Bahrain Grand Prix, as the paddock prepared for the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, Carlos Sainz was diagnosed with acute appendicitis. He was forced to undergo emergency surgery, missing the race in Saudi Arabia and cast into doubt for the weekend at Albert Park. The physical challenge of returning to a Formula One cockpit just over 2 weeks after abdominal surgery was immense. Sainz admitted that in the first week following the operation, he could barely walk or get out of bed without assistance. The pain remained, making even coughing or sneezing difficult. Yet, the knowledge that his future in the sport depended on his performance drove him back into the car. Sainz's return in Melbourne was nothing short of extraordinary. While Max Verstappen secured pole position, the Spaniard lined up alongside him on the front row. Early in the race, Verstappen suffered a dramatic rear brake failure, forcing him to retire the car in a plume of smoke. Sainz capitalized immediately, taking the lead and delivering a flawless drive to secure an emotional victory. It was a performance that captured the attention of every team principal on the grid, proving that Sainz possessed the mental resilience and raw speed to succeed under the most difficult circumstances. As the season progressed into the spring, another narrative began to unfold. Around Lando Norris and McLaren, Norris, widely regarded as one of the brightest young talents in the sport, had built a reputation for consistency, securing numerous podium finishes but always falling just short of the top step. The moniker of Lando No Wins, coined by critics on social media, had begun to weigh on his mind, despite the outward projection of a relaxed, modern athlete. Norris admitted to struggling with the psychological pressure of expectations, often falling into a spiral of self-doubt when victories slipped through his fingers. The turning point arrived at the Miami Grand Prix. McLaren had brought a substantial package of technical updates to the Florida circuit, hoping to close the gap to Red Bull. During the race, a well-timed safety car period played into Norris's hands, allowing him to pit from the lead and emerge ahead of Max Verstappen. When the race restarted, Norris defended brilliantly against the reigning champion, gradually building a lead to cross the line and secure his maiden Formula One victory. The relief was palpable. The victory in Miami transformed Norris, giving him a newfound confidence that was visible both on and off the track. He began to carry himself with the authority of a Grand Prix winner, and for the first time in his career, he and McLaren began to be viewed by Red Bull as a genuine threat to their supremacy. The friendship between Norris and Verstappen, built over years of competing in the same generation, was soon put to the test as the on-track battles grew increasingly intense. At the Austrian Grand Prix, the rivalry reached a boiling point. Norris, hunting Verstappen for the lead in the closing stages of the race, launched a series of aggressive overtakes. The two drivers raced wheel to wheel, with Norris accusing Verstappen of moving under braking. The tension culminated in a dramatic collision at turn 3, causing damage to both cars and forced Norris to retire from the race. Verstappen managed to limp back to the pits and finish 5th, but the damage to their friendship was done. Norris expressed deep disappointment, stating that if Verstappen refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing, he would lose a significant amount of respect for his friend. Verstappen, unyielding in his competitive philosophy, maintained that he had done nothing wrong, demonstrating the absolute ruthlessness required to remain at the top of the sport. Meanwhile, at Mercedes, Toto Wolff was navigating a dual challenge. He needed to support George Russell as the British driver transitioned into the role of team leader, while simultaneously scouting for the next generation of talent to fill the vacant seat for 2025. Russell had shown immense speed since joining the team, but questions remained over his tendency to make critical errors under high pressure. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone served as a crucial test of Russell's leadership. In front of a passionate home crowd, Mercedes secured a stunning front-row lockout, with Russell on pole position and Hamilton alongside him. The race was held in treacherous, changing conditions as rain swept across the circuit. Russell led early on, but as the track dried and the strategic decisions became critical, the race began to slip away from him. A suspected water system failure ultimately forced him to retire the car, leaving Lewis Hamilton to claim a deeply emotional and historic victory in his final home race for Mercedes. For Russell, the disappointment was profound, but the lesson was clear. To be the undisputed leader of a top-tier team, he needed to combine his raw speed with flawless execution under pressure. He would get his opportunity for redemption just a few weeks later at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. Starting from 6th on the grid, Russell drove a disciplined race, gradually moving through the field. As the lead cars made their second pit stops, Russell made a bold, independent decision to stay out on a one-stop strategy, trusting that his hard compound tires could survive the remaining 14 laps. It was a massive strategic gamble, but Russell executed it perfectly, defending against a fast closing Lewis Hamilton to cross the line first. Although a post-race technical inspection would ultimately lead to his disqualification for the car. Being underweight, the performance demonstrated to Toto Wolff that Russell possessed the tactical intelligence and bravery required to lead the team into a new era. With Russell's position secure, Wolff turned his attention to the second seat. Rather than opting for an experienced driver from the existing market, Wolff chose to take a calculated risk on a young prodigy from the Mercedes Junior program. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a 17-year-old Italian racing in Formula 2, had dominated every junior category he had entered. Wolff saw in Antonelli the same rare potential that had defined the early careers of Max Verstappen and Ayrton Senna. Despite the inherent risks of promoting an 18-year-old directly to a top-tier seat, Wolff confirmed that Antonelli would partner Russell for the 2025 season, signaling a bold commitment to youth and future potential. As the high summer transition arrived, the battle for Carlos Sainz's signature intensified. With the doors to Mercedes and Red Bull firmly closed, the Spaniard had three distinct options on the table. Each presented a completely different philosophical path for his career. The first offer came from Stake Formula One team, which was set to transition into the official Audi factory team in 2026. Alessandro Alunni Bravi, the team representative, pitched the project as an opportunity for Sainz to lead one of the world's most successful automotive brands in their entry into Formula One. The family connection was strong, as Sainz's father had recently won the Dakar Rally with Audi. However, the team's current performance was poor, and signing with them meant accepting a difficult 2025 season with no guarantee of immediate success when the new regulations arrived in 2026. The second option was Williams Racing, led by the ambitious James Vowles. Vowles had embarked on a comprehensive rebuilding project aiming to restore the historic team to its former glory. He was completely transparent with Sainz about the team's current weaknesses, but presented a highly convincing vision of their future trajectory. backed by significant investment, for Vowles securing. A driver of Sainz's caliber alongside Alex Albon would represent a massive coup, transforming Williams from a midfield struggler into a serious contender. The third and most unexpected option came from Alpine, where the controversial Flavio Briatore had returned as an executive advisor. Briatore, a veteran of the paddock who had guided Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso to world championships, was determined to restructure the struggling French team. He made a late, aggressive push to sign Sainz, using his formidable powers of persuasion to present Alpine as a more competitive short-term option than Williams or Audi. Sainz found himself in a state of deep indecision, agonizing over a choice that would define the peak years of his career. He knew that if he made the wrong decision, he might never have the opportunity to win another Grand Prix. The pressure from the teams was relentless, with journalists and rival drivers watching his every move as the rest of the driver market remained on hold, waiting for his decision. The resolution came in late summer. After careful consideration of the long-term projects and the leadership of each team, Sainz chose to trust his intuition and sign with Williams Racing. It was a decision based on the compelling vision presented by James Vowles and the belief that he could play a fundamental role in returning one of the sport's most legendary names to the front of the grid. As the season moved into its final phase, the competitive landscape had been completely transformed. The absolute dominance of Red Bull had been broken, replaced by a genuine multi-team battle at the front of the field. Lando Norris, now a regular winner, had emerged as a serious challenger to Max Verstappen's crown, while George Russell stood ready to lead Mercedes into a post-Hamilton era alongside the young Andrea Kimi Antonelli. For Carlos Sainz, the journey to Williams represented a new beginning, a testament to his resilience and his belief that success in Formula One was not just about the car you drove, but the legacy you helped to build. The morning sun rose slowly over the asphalt, casting long, pale shadows across the quiet paddock. It was that brief, suspended moment before the engines began their guttural warm-up, before the mechanics rolled up the garage doors, and before the relentless chatter of the global media cycle commenced. For those who lived their lives within this traveling circus, the silence was a rare commodity. The previous year had been an exercise in relentless superiority, a demonstration of mathematical and physical dominance that had left the rest of the grid searching for answers in the wind tunnels and the telemetry data. In the year 2023, Red Bull Racing had constructed a campaign that bordered on the statistically absurd. Out of 22 races, they had secured victory in 21. They had systematically dismantled records that had stood for decades, the most wins in a single year, the most podium finishes, the highest ratio of pole positions converted into victories, the most championship points accumulated by a single competitor, and the largest winning margin ever recorded in the history of the sport. It was a display of athletic and engineering supremacy that left observers struggling for Appropriate descriptors. To some, it was a masterpiece of organizational efficiency. To others, it was a tedious monopoly that threatened the dramatic tension of the sport. For the rest of the paddock, the year had been a sobering lesson in the reality of modern motorsport. Formula One is a discipline that operates with absolute ruthlessness. There is no room for sentimentality, and there is certainly no room for complacency. When one competitor establishes such a significant advantage, the reaction of the surrounding ecosystem is a mixture of awe, resentment, and a desperate scramble to close the gap. The truth is that in this environment, you never truly know what the next corner will bring. Careers are forged and dismantled over the span of tenths of a second, and the line between triumph and professional obsolescence is perilously thin. As the grid prepared for the 2024 season, the underlying tension was palpable. More than half of the active drivers were entering the final year of their contracts. There was a collective understanding that this would be a season of survival, an extended audition where every maneuver, every defensive stand, and every qualifying lap would be scrutinized by team principals looking to secure their lineups for the 2025 season and beyond. In this sport, if you lose your seat, there is a very high probability that your career is over. No one, regardless of past accolades, is entirely safe from the cold calculus of the driver market. Then, before the first engine had even been fired for preseason testing, an announcement of seismic proportions shattered the winter quiet. It was a piece of news that rearranged the entire landscape of the sport in an instant. Lewis Hamilton, the seven-time world champion whose name had become synonymous with Mercedes-AMG Petronas over a highly successful 12-year partnership, had decided to leave the team. At the end of the 2024 season, he would be defecting to their historic rivals, Scuderia Ferrari, for the 2025 campaign. The paddock was left in a state of collective disbelief. The timing of the announcement, occurring in early February before the new cars had even been officially launched, created a highly unusual dynamic. It meant that Hamilton and Mercedes would have to endure a 24-race farewell, a protracted and public departure under the constant gaze of the cameras and the journalists. For Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, the news had arrived with a quiet, surreal suddenness. For over a decade, Hamilton had been the cornerstone of his team, the driving force behind 8 consecutive constructors' championships and some of the most memorable moments in the sport. To hear his driver of 12 years state that he was moving to Maranello was a psychological blow that required a carefully measured response. Wolff had always maintained a highly professional demeanor, but the reality of the situation was clear. The most successful driver team pairing in modern history was coming to an end, and they still had an entire season of racing to complete together. The immediate reaction within the Mercedes camp was one of polite professionalism masking a deep sense of unease. At the launch of their 2024 car, the tension was barely concealed. The silver and green machine sat under the bright lights of the presentation stage, a physical representation of the team's hopes for recovery after 2 difficult seasons. Yet, the atmosphere was dominated by the impending departure. During the presentation, there was a light-hearted exchange about the car's aesthetic, with Hamilton noting that the design looked like 2 separate cars split in half and joined together. Behind the humor lay the stark reality that Hamilton had already decided that his future lay elsewhere, indicating a lack of belief that Mercedes could quickly return to their championship-winning ways. Meanwhile, in Maranello, the announcement had created an entirely different set of complications. The arrival of Hamilton meant that one of Ferrari's current drivers would have to be sacrificed. That individual was Carlos Sainz. Sainz had been a loyal and highly effective servant to the Italian team. In 2023, he had been the only driver outside of the Red Bull organization to secure a Grand Prix victory, achieving a brilliant win under the floodlights of Singapore. He was a driver of exceptional intelligence and work ethic, yet he now found himself cast aside to make room for a legend. The news of his release was a deeply personal blow, one that would have tested the resolve of any athlete. Sainz was left with a simple, stark objective for the upcoming season. He had to use every single race to prove his worth, not just to the teams that might have an opening for 2025, but to himself. As the paddock gathered in Bahrain for the start of pre-season testing, the focus of the sporting world was briefly pulled away from the driver market by a developing situation at the reigning champions. Red Bull Racing, despite their formidable athletic position, found themselves engulfed in a complex internal matter. Allegations of inappropriate behavior had been leveled against their long-serving team principal, Christian Horner, by a female member of the organization. The situation immediately became the dominant narrative in the paddock. Horner, who had guided the team from its inception to multiple world championships, faced an intense media onslaught. Every press conference was dominated by questions regarding his future, the details of the internal investigation initiated by the parent company, and the potential impact on the team's performance. Horner maintained a firm denial of all accusations, continuing to perform his duties under the glare of the cameras. For the observers and rival team principals, the situation was a source of significant concern and, in some cases, quiet opportunism. Formula One is a sport where psychological stability is just as important as aerodynamic efficiency. Any division within a team, especially one at the very top, can create fractures that affect performance on the track. Zak Brown, the chief executive of McLaren, was vocal in his calls for transparency, noting that the allegations were serious and that the sport required a clear and open resolution to maintain its reputation. Just before the opening race weekend in Bahrain, the independent investigation concluded, and Red Bull announced that the allegations against Horner had been dismissed. It appeared, for a brief moment, that the storm might pass and the focus could return to the racetrack. However, within 24 hours of the announcement, an anonymous email was distributed to key figures in the paddock, including team principals and accredited journalists. The email contained a cache of material purporting to be evidence from the investigation. The leak was a calculated move designed to maximize disruption and keep the controversy alive at the precise moment the cars were taking to the track for the first practice sessions of the season. Horner was forced once again to defend his position, reiterating his denials and attempting to focus on the competitive aspect of his role. But the damage to the team's internal cohesion was becoming increasingly visible. The friction was not confined to the executive offices. Jos Verstappen, the father of the reigning world champion Max Verstappen, made public statements, suggesting that the team was at risk of being torn apart if Horner remained in his post. The tension between the driver's camp and the team management was now public, creating an extraordinary backdrop to what was expected to be another year of Red Bull dominance. On the track, however, the competitive machinery of Red Bull seemed unaffected by the off-track turmoil. As the floodlights illuminated the Bahrain International Circuit for the first qualifying session of the year, Max Verstappen secured pole position, demonstrating that his focus remained absolute. For Carlos Sainz, the Bahrain Grand Prix was the beginning of his campaign of redemption. Starting from the second row, the Spaniard drove a determined and aggressive race. He engaged in a close, wheel-to-wheel battle with his teammate, Charles Leclerc, executing a clean overtake to claim third place. It was a clear statement of intent. He was no longer racing for Ferrari's long-term future. He was racing for his own. Verstappen took a comfortable victory, leading a Red Bull 1-2 finish, while Sainz stood on the third step of the podium. It was a familiar result at the front, but the undercurrents in the paddock suggested that this season would be anything but predictable. In the post-race celebrations, Horner embraced his driver and his key staff, attempting to project an image of unity and strength. Yet, the questions remained, and the relentless nature of the 24 race calendar meant there would be no respite. The circus moved quickly to Saudi Arabia for the second round of the championship. The high-speed street circuit of Jeddah was a formidable physical challenge, and for Carlos Sainz it would prove to be a test of physical endurance of a different kind. During the early practice sessions, the Spaniard began to feel severely unwell. Despite the intense discomfort, he completed his driving duties on Thursday, but by Friday morning, the situation had deteriorated. He was diagnosed with acute appendicitis and rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. The news was a significant setback for Sainz, who had started the year so strongly. In his place, Ferrari fielded their young reserve driver, Oliver Behrman, who performed admirably under immense pressure. But for Sainz, lying in a hospital bed in Jeddah, the primary concern was recovery and the realization of how quickly an opportunity can slip away in this sport. As Sainz began his rehabilitation, the paddock was already looking ahead to the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, just 16 days later, to return to the cockpit of a Formula One car, which subjects the driver to immense gravitational forces so soon after abdominal surgery was considered by many to be an immense risk. Yet, Sainz was driven by a powerful motivation. He knew that in Formula One, memory is short-term. If he missed multiple races, his stock in the driver market would inevitably decline. When Sainz arrived in Melbourne, he was clearly not at 100% physical capacity. He admitted to having difficulty walking in the days immediately following the surgery, and he was unable to sneeze or cough without experiencing pain in his abdominal muscles. But once he buckled into the Ferrari cockpit, the adrenaline and his natural talent took over. In qualifying, Sainz produced an extraordinary lap to secure a place on the front row alongside Max Verstappen. It was a remarkable achievement given his physical condition, but the real drama was yet to come on Sunday. As the lights went out at Albert Park, Verstappen maintained the lead, but it quickly became apparent that all was not well with the Red Bull. On the second lap, Sainz closed the gap and executed a bold overtake around the outside to take the lead. Moments later, smoke began to billow from the right rear of Verstappen's car. A stuck rear brake caliper had caused a fire, forcing the championship leader into a dramatic retirement. With Verstappen out of the running, Sainz delivered a flawless performance. He controlled the pace of the race from the front, managing his tires and his physical energy to take a stunning victory. It was a highly emotional moment, not just for Sainz, but for the entire sport. Just 16 days after major surgery, the Spaniard had achieved what many thought impossible, leading a Ferrari 1-2 finish with Leclerc in second. The victory in Melbourne completely transformed Sainz's position in the driver market. He had demonstrated not only his exceptional speed, but also a level of mental and physical resilience that marked him as an elite competitor. Suddenly, the midfield teams who were looking to elevate their status saw Sainz as the ultimate prize. Among those watching Sainz's performance with intense interest was James Vowles, the team principal of Williams Racing. Williams was a team with a rich and storied history, possessing 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' titles. However, the recent decade had been a period of significant struggle for the Grove-based outfit, often finding themselves at the very back of the grid. Vowles, who had joined Williams after a highly successful career as the strategy director at Mercedes, was tasked with a complete rebuild of the organization. He understood that to return to the front, the team needed to address its operational weaknesses, but they also needed a top-tier driver. Alex Albon had established himself as a reliable leader within the team, but his teammate, Logan Sargent, was struggling to match his performance. Sargent's second season in the sport had begun with a series of costly incidents. The American driver had struggled with consistency, and the damage bill from his various accidents was putting a significant strain on the team's limited resources. Vowles was forced to make a difficult decision. He informed Sargent that the team would not be renewing his contract for the 2025 season. The search for a replacement was on, and Vowles had set his sights on the highest possible target, Carlos Sainz. The pursuit of Sainz would not be straightforward. Williams was currently a midfield team, and Sainz was a driver accustomed to fighting for victories. To convince him to join a project that would require years of development was a formidable challenge, but Vowles was prepared to be completely transparent about the team's current weaknesses and his long-term vision for the future. At the same time, another suitor was making a strong case for Sainz's services. The Stake Sauber team, representing Sauber Motorsport, was preparing for a monumental transition. In the year 2026, the team would officially become the Audi Factory Works team, the arrival of one of the world's largest automotive manufacturers was a highly significant development for the sport, and they possess the financial resources and engineering expertise to eventually challenge the top teams. Alessandro Alunni Bravi, the team representative for Stake Sauber, saw Sainz as the ideal driver to lead this transition. Sainz's father, Carlos Sainz Sr., had a long and highly successful association with Audi, having recently won the prestigious Dakar Rally using their advanced hybrid machinery. The family connection was a natural point of leverage, and Audi was prepared to offer Sainz a lucrative, long-term contract to become the spearhead of their new Formula One project. For Sainz, the choice was an incredibly difficult one. On one hand, Williams offered a historic name, a highly respected team principal in Vowles, and a clear, immediate role as the team's leader. On the other hand, Audi represented the immense potential of a major manufacturer, but with the caveat that the team's current form under the Sauber banner was highly disappointing, with the car frequently struggling at the back of the field and suffering from consistent operational issues, including slow pit stops. As the negotiations dragged on through the spring and into the summer, the driver market seemed to be entirely on hold, waiting for Sainz to make his decision. Other drivers, whose futures depended on where Sainz landed, watched the situation with a mixture of frustration and anticipation. While Sainz contemplated his future, another dramatic storyline was unfolding at the front of the grid, centered around Lando Norris and McLaren. Norris had long been regarded as one of the most natural talents of his generation. He had entered Formula One with McLaren as a teenager and had consistently delivered impressive performances, accumulating a significant number of podium finishes. However, as the 2024 season commenced, one major milestone continued to elude him: a Grand Prix victory. The lack of a win had become a psychological burden for the young British driver. The media and the online community had adopted the nickname Lando No Wins, a label that, despite his attempt to dismiss it, undoubtedly weighed on his mind. Norris was a highly self-critical athlete, prone to deep introspection and occasional self-doubt. He admitted that his primary weakness was caring too much about the opinions of others, a trait that could lead to a negative psychological spiral when things did not go well on the track. The start of the 2024 season had been somewhat frustrating for McLaren. While the car was clearly competitive, they had not yet been able to consistently challenge Red Bull at the very top. Norris had secured some decent points finishes, but he had not been able to match the relentless pace of Max Verstappen. Then came the Miami Grand Prix. The event was a spectacular showcase of modern Formula One, held around the Miami International Autodrome under the warm Florida sun. Verstappen was the heavy favorite, having never been beaten at the venue. During the early stages of the race, Verstappen established a comfortable lead, while Norris found himself in fifth place after a chaotic start. It appeared that it would be another routine victory for the reigning champion. However, on lap 28, a collision between Kevin Magnussen and Logan Sargent brought out the safety car. The timing of the safety car was incredibly fortuitous for Norris, who had not yet made his mandatory pit stop, while the rest of the field was bunched up behind the safety car. Norris was able to enter the pits, change his tires, and emerge as the leader of the race. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for his entire career. But leading a Grand Prix with Max Verstappen immediately behind you on a restart is one of the most intense psychological challenges a driver can face. In his mind, Norris was reminding himself to stay calm and avoid any mistakes. When the safety car returned to the pit lane, Norris executed a perfect restart. He maintained the lead into turn 1, defending his position against an aggressive challenge from Verstappen. As the laps ticked down, the expected charge from the Red Bull did not materialize. The McLaren was performing exceptionally well on the hard tires, and Norris began to slowly stretch his lead. When the checkered flag fell, Lando Norris had crossed the line to secure his first Grand Prix victory. The relief and joy within the McLaren team were immense. It was a victory that was celebrated across the entire paddock, with rival drivers, including Hamilton and even Verstappen, offering their sincere congratulations. For Norris, the victory was a transformative moment. The Lando no-wins label was gone forever, replaced by the status of a Grand Prix winner. He walked a little taller, spoke with greater confidence, and began to see himself not just as a competitor, but as a genuine challenger to Max Verstappen's crown. The victory in Miami had also altered the competitive dynamic at the front of the field. McLaren had proven that they had a car capable of beating Red Bull on pure merit, and they were determined to keep the pressure on. The friendship between Norris and Verstappen, which had been forged during their years of racing together as juniors, was about to be subjected to the extreme pressures of a world championship fight. Verstappen was a driver of uncompromising aggression, possessing a take-no-prisoners philosophy on the track. Norris, while highly competitive, had historically been seen as a more amicable character. But to challenge Verstappen, he would have to develop a similar level of ruthlessness. Over the subsequent races, the tension between the two competitors began to build. In Imola and Spain, Verstappen secured narrow victories, but Norris was always close behind, challenging him until the final laps. The margin between the two teams had shrunk to almost nothing, and the racing was becoming increasingly intense. The boiling point was reached at the Austrian Grand Prix, held at the Red Bull Ring. It was Verstappen's home event, and the grandstands were a sea of orange. Verstappen had secured pole position and led the early stages of the race, but a slow pit stop from the Red Bull team allowed Norris to close the gap. In the final 15 laps, the two drivers engaged in a ferocious battle for the lead. Norris made several attempts to overtake Verstappen into turn 3, but the Dutchman defended his position with extreme vigor, moving under braking and forcing Norris wide on multiple occasions. Norris was increasingly frustrated, expressing his complaints over the team radio. On lap 64, the inevitable occurred. As Norris attempted to pass on the outside of turn 3, Verstappen squeezed him toward the edge of the track. The two cars made contact, causing punctures for both competitors. Norris was forced to retire his heavily damaged car, while Verstappen was able to limp back to the pits, change tires, and finish in 5th place despite receiving a 10-second penalty for causing the collision. The aftermath of the incident was highly charged. Norris was visibly upset, stating that Verstappen's driving was dangerous and that if the Dutchman refused to acknowledge his mistake, he would lose a significant amount of respect for him. Verstappen, conversely, maintained that he had not been overly aggressive, and that the contact was simply a consequence of hard racing. The incident was a significant milestone. It demonstrated that when a world championship is on the line, personal friendships are secondary to the pursuit of victory. Verstappen had laid down a firm marker. He would not be intimidated, and he would defend his position by any means necessary. Norris had learned a hard lesson about the reality of competing at the absolute limit of the sport. As the summer progressed, the focus shifted to Mercedes-AMG Petronas, where Toto Wolff was facing his own critical decisions regarding the future of his team. With Lewis Hamilton departing for Ferrari, Mercedes needed to secure a driver who could partner George Russell for the 2025 season. Russell had joined the team in 2022 and had shown exceptional speed, but he had also made several high-profile mistakes at crucial moments in races. The question remained whether Russell was ready to assume the role of the undisputed team leader. Wolff was actively exploring several options. He made no secret of his desire to secure the services of Max Verstappen should the internal conflict at Red Bull create an opportunity for the Dutchman to leave his current team. Wolff was engaged in regular discussions with Jos Verstappen, attempting to position Mercedes as the ideal long-term home for the champion. However, Verstappen publicly committed to remaining with Red Bull for the 2025 season, forcing Wolff to look elsewhere. One option was the experienced Carlos Sainz, who was still uncommitted. But Wolff was reluctant to offer Sainz a long-term contract, as he was also managing the career of a young driver who is widely regarded as the next superstar of the sport, Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli was a 17-year-old Italian prodigy who had been part of the Mercedes junior program for several years. He had compiled an extraordinary record in the junior categories, winning championships in every series he had entered. For the 2024 season, Mercedes had taken the bold step of promoting him directly to Formula 2, bypassing the Formula 3 category entirely. Wolff saw Antonelli as a potential generational talent, a driver who could follow in the footsteps of Verstappen and Michael Schumacher. However, promoting a teenager directly to a race seat at Mercedes was a significant risk. The pressure of competing at the front of the Formula One grid was immense, and a premature promotion could permanently damage a young driver's career. While Wolff contemplated this dilemma, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone arrived, presenting George Russell with a perfect opportunity to demonstrate his leadership credentials. The weekend began exceptionally well for Mercedes. In front of a passionate home crowd, Russell secured pole position, with Hamilton completing a front row lockout for the Silver Arrows. It was a moment of immense pride for the team, but the race itself would prove to be a complex and unpredictable affair. As the race got underway, the British weather played its customary role, with rain showers creating highly challenging conditions. The drivers had to manage the transition from dry tires to intermediates, a process that required absolute focus and precise timing. Russell led the early stages, but as the rain intensified, Hamilton and the McLaren drivers showed exceptional pace in the damp conditions. A strategic error by the Mercedes pit wall cost Russell time, and his race deteriorated further when a suspected water system issue forced him to retire the car. It was a bitter disappointment for Russell, who had started the race from pole position and was desperate to secure a victory on home soil. Instead, it was Lewis Hamilton who claimed an emotional victory, his first win since the late 2021 season. The crowd erupted as Hamilton crossed the line, celebrating what would be his final victory for Mercedes at Silverstone. For Russell, the retirement was another lesson in the cruel nature of the sport. He had the speed to compete at the very front, but he had to find a way to eliminate the errors and the misfortune that seemed to follow him at critical moments. The opportunity for redemption came just 2 weeks later at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. The race began with Charles Leclerc on pole position, but Hamilton quickly took the lead, demonstrating strong race pace. Russell had started from 6th place, but was quietly working his way through the field, showing exceptional tire management on the medium compound. As the race progressed, the standard strategy appeared to be a two-stop race. However, Russell, feeling comfortable in the car and noticing that his tires were maintaining their performance, made a bold decision. Over the team radio, He suggested to his engineer that they should attempt to run to the end on a single stop. It was an incredible gamble to complete a one-stop race at Spa, a circuit that subjects the tires to immense energy, required a level of tire management and a confidence that few drivers possessed. The team accepted the risk, and Russell became the leader of the race as the other competitors made their second pit stops. In the final 10 laps, Hamilton, on much fresher tires, began to close the gap rapidly. The tension on the Mercedes pit wall was immense as the two teammates prepared for a potential battle for the victory. Russell drove a defensive race, placing his car in the middle of the track and using the aerodynamic wake to prevent Hamilton from getting a clean run on the straights. Despite the intense pressure and heavily worn tires, Russell crossed the finish line to claim a spectacular victory. Although the car was subsequently disqualified after the race due to being underweight, the performance itself was a clear demonstration of Russell's maturity and tactical intelligence. He had taken control of his own destiny, overruling the team's planned strategy to execute a daring and successful drive. It was precisely the kind of performance that Toto Wolff was looking for as he evaluated Russell's readiness to lead the team in the post-Hamilton era. Following the summer break, Wolff made his decision. Kimi Antonelli was officially confirmed as Lewis Hamilton's replacement at Mercedes for the 2025 season. The 17-year-old would step up to partner George Russell, creating one of the most exciting and youngest driver lineups in the history of the team. With the Mercedes seat filled, the focus of the driver market returned to Carlos Sainz, who was now entering the final stages of his decision-making process. In addition to the offers from Williams and Stake Sauber, a new and unexpected competitor had entered the frame, Alpine. The French team had experienced a highly difficult 2024 campaign, struggling with a heavy and uncompetitive car that frequently left them at the back of the grid. In an attempt to arrest the decline, the executive chairman of Renault had made a bold and controversial move. He had appointed Flavio Briatore as a special advisor to the team. Briatore was one of the most famous and controversial figures in the history of Formula One. He had guided Benetton and Renault to multiple world championships with Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso, but his career had been halted by the infamous Crashgate scandal in 2008, which had resulted in a lifetime ban from the sport, later overturned by French courts. Briatore's return to the paddock was met with a mixture of amusement and concern. He was a competitive animal, a negotiator of exceptional skill who was not concerned with diplomacy. His objective was simple: to make Alpine a winning team once again, and he knew that to achieve that, he needed a top-tier driver. Briatore immediately set his sights on Carlos Sainz. He had known Sainz's father for decades, and he used this relationship to present a compelling case to the family. He argued that under his guidance, Alpine would undergo a rapid transformation, shifting from a struggling manufacturer team to a lean, competitive operation that would be capable of fighting for podiums in the near Future. The sudden arrival of Briatore created a new element of uncertainty for Sainz. Alpine represented a manufacturer-backed team, which in theory possessed greater long-term potential than a privateer team like Williams. Yet the team's current form was poor, and the organizational instability was a significant concern. For James Vowles, the threat from Alpine was real. He knew that Briatore was a formidable competitor who could offer Sainz terms that Williams might struggle to match. Vowles was forced to work even harder to convince Sainz that Grove was the right place for his future. Vowles met with Sainz and his management team on multiple occasions, emphasizing the stability of the Williams organization, the financial backing of their owners, Dorilton Capital, and the clear development plan that would see the team make significant progress over the next few seasons. He was honest about the challenges they faced, but he presented a clear, logical path to success that resonated with the analytical mind of the Spanish driver. Ultimately, Sainz had to trust his intuition. He had to look beyond the immediate financial offers and evaluate which project possessed the genuine capability to provide him with a competitive car in the years ahead. On the eve of the summer shutdown, the decision was made. Carlos Sainz officially signed a multi-year contract to join Williams Racing for the 2025 season and beyond. It was a momentous occasion for Williams, representing their most significant driver signing in decades. For Vowles, it was a validation of his vision and his transparent approach to team management. He had successfully convinced one of the most sought-after drivers on the grid to commit to his project, signaling to the rest of the paddock that Williams was serious about its return to the front. For Carlos Sainz, the signing was a moment of relief and quiet satisfaction. He had navigated a highly complex and stressful period, managing his exit from Ferrari with dignity while securing a future that he believed in. He knew that the journey with Williams would require hard work and patience, but he was prepared to lead the historic team back to where it belonged. As the paddock prepared for the final races of the 2024 season, the grid for 2025 was beginning to take shape. The seismic shifts of the past few months had created a landscape that was unrecognizable from the previous year. Hamilton would wear the red of Ferrari. Sainz would spearhead the revival at Williams, and the young prodigy Antonelli would begin his journey with Mercedes. The sport of Formula One had demonstrated once again why it remains one of the most captivating and brutal disciplines in the world. It is an environment where the on-track action is inseparable from the human drama, where friendships are tested to the breaking point, and where the decisions made in the quiet of the office can define the destiny of a champion. And as the cars lined up on the grid for the next race, the collective understanding was clear. The only thing that is certain in this sport is that nothing remains static for long. The morning sun rose over the tarmac, casting long, sharp shadows across the pit lane. It was the beginning of another year, a cycle of relentless competition that defined the lives of 20 elite athletes and hundreds of support Personnel who existed within the high-pressure orbit of Formula One.
2.
Understand this sport is to understand a world where milliseconds dictate. Destiny, where fortunes are made and careers are dismantled in the space of a single turn. Looking back at the year 2023, the statistics seemed almost fictional. Out of 22 races, Red Bull Racing had secured 21 victories, breaking records for the most wins in a single year, the most podium finishes, the most pole positions converted to victories, the highest accumulation of points, and the largest winning margin in the history of the
sport.
It was a demonstration of dominance that Formula One had rarely witnessed, a masterclass in engineering and driving precision that left rival teams looking entirely outclassed. Red Bull Racing had made the competition look stagnant. They were an unstoppable force, leaving the rest of the grid to ponder how such a massive deficit could ever be closed. Yet, as the paddock prepared for the 2024 season, there was an underlying truth that everyone understood. In this ruthless environment, you never truly know what life is going to bring. The future is an unpredictable landscape, and even the most secure empires can begin to show fractures.
The
upcoming season promised to be one of the wildest in history, defined by a looming contract crisis. Over half of the drivers on the grid did not have signed contracts for the 2025 season. It was a brutal reality of survival, where losing a seat could mean the permanent end of a career. No one was safe, and the drama off the track was poised to be just as explosive as the
action on it.
The whisper network in Formula One is a constant, humming entity. The press, the rumors, and the speculation create a continuous background noise that can easily distract a driver or team principal. In early 2024, that noise reached a deafening crescendo. The announcement of one of the biggest driver transfers in the history of the sport shook the entire establishment. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion who had spent 12 years with Mercedes and had become synonymous with the brand, announced his decision to leave the team at the end of the season to join Ferrari for 2025. It was a seismic shift. The news broke like a bombshell, catching the entire grid off guard. For 12 years, Hamilton and Mercedes had enjoyed a partnership that yielded historic success, winning 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships. The idea of Hamilton wearing the red racing suit of Ferrari had once seemed like an impossibility, a fantasy discussed only by fans.
Now it was
a confirmed reality. The first race in Bahrain was a mere 17 days away when the implications of this transfer began to sink in. For Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, the announcement was surreal.
He
recalled the moment Lewis delivered the news, admitting that it felt almost artificial. He could not picture his star driver in anything other than the silver and green of Mercedes. What surprised Wolff most was not just the decision itself, but the timing. To announce a departure in February before the new car had even turned a wheel in a competitive session meant embarking on a 24-race divorce. It was a long potentially awkward farewell. The timing suggested that Hamilton had lost faith in Mercedes' ability to deliver a championship-winning car in the near future, choosing instead to align his twilight years with the historic Italian team. The final Mercedes car launch with Hamilton was a bittersweet affair. Standing before the cameras, both Wolff and Hamilton tried to project unity and optimism. But the underlying tension was palpable. During a promotional segment, Hamilton looked at the new livery and remarked that it looked like two different cars had been split in half and put together. It was a moment of honest critique, wrapped in light-hearted banter, but it spoke volumes about the disconnect that had developed between driver and team. Hamilton joked about creating a special Lewis edition of the car to look back on when he was racing ahead of them in a Ferrari. The following year, Wolff could only smile, acknowledging that this was the kind of dialogue he would have to endure for the entire season. The ripple effects of Hamilton's move were immediate and profound. In Formula One, there are only 2 seats per team, and Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari meant that someone had to be displaced. That person was Carlos Sainz, the Spanish driver who had been a vital asset to Ferrari and was the only non-Red Bull driver to win a Grand Prix in 2023, suddenly found himself without a seat for 2025. Sainz admitted that he was not prepared for the news and felt a deep sense of sadness. He had hoped to build his future with Ferrari, believing it was his best opportunity to become a world champion. Now he was forced into a position where every single race of the 2024 season would serve as an active audition for his survival in the sport. As pre-season testing commenced, the paddock gathered for the traditional grid photograph. The atmosphere was unique. For the first time in the history of the sport, the exact same lineup of 20 drivers started the season as had finished the previous one. Yet beneath this superficial stability, the driver market was a tinderbox, with 3/4 of the contracts expiring at the end of the year. Every driver was essentially flirting with potential employers. It was a constant state of negotiation, a high-stakes game of musical chairs where only the strongest would secure a place. While the driver market simmered, a different kind of storm was brewing at Red Bull Racing. The team principal, Christian Horner, found himself at the center of an internal investigation following allegations of inappropriate behavior made by a female staff member. The news threatened to overshadow the launch of their new car and disrupt the harmony of a team that had enjoyed unprecedented success. Horner faced intense media scrutiny upon his arrival in Bahrain for preseason testing. In a highly pressurized press conference, journalists pressed him on whether the investigation risked unsettling the team and if he had considered stepping aside temporarily. Horner remained steadfast, denying the accusations and emphasizing that there was an ongoing corporate process that he was cooperating with. Rival team principals, such as Zach Brown of McLaren, called for transparency, noting that such allegations were incredibly serious and not the kind of headlines the sport wanted or needed. The situation highlighted the fragile nature of unity within a sports organization when the focus shifts from the collective effort to the actions of one individual. The risk of division increases significantly. Just as the season was about to begin, Red Bull announced that the independent investigation had been completed and the allegations against Horner had been dismissed. He would continue in his role as team principal. Horner expressed relief, stating that it was business as usual for the team as they prepared for the opening race. However, the peace was short-lived. During a practice session, a major development occurred. An anonymous email containing a cache of alleged WhatsApp messages and photographs was sent to team principals, journalists, and key figures within the sport. The leak was clearly timed to cause maximum disruption. Horner chose not to comment on the anonymous messages, maintaining his focus on the race weekend. He acknowledged that the higher one rises in this sport, the sharper the knives become, but he remained determined to lead his team on the track. The Bahrain Grand Prix marked the official start of the 2024 season. Under the brilliant floodlights, the 20 drivers lined up on the grid, ready to find out the true pecking order of the new cars. For Carlos Sainz, the race was the first step in proving his worth to potential employers. He started the race with determination, quickly finding his rhythm. Despite a difficult start that saw him lose positions, Sainz fought back, executing precise overtakes, including a daring move past his teammate Charles Leclerc. Up front, Max Verstappen demonstrated why he was the defending champion, commanding the race from pole position and securing a comfortable victory. Red Bull achieved a dominant 1-2 finish, with Sergio Perez claiming second. For Horner, the result was a powerful statement on the track, a sporting answer to the off-track turmoil. Carlos Sainz crossed the line in third place, securing a crucial podium finish and sending a clear message to the paddock. Meanwhile, Mercedes struggled, with Hamilton finishing a disappointing 7th, raising further questions about the team's competitive trajectory. The tension within Red Bull, however, was far from resolved. Following the race, Jos Verstappen, the father of Max, publicly stated that the team was at risk of being torn apart if Horner remained in charge. When asked about his father's comments, Max Verstappen chose his words carefully, stating that his father was outspoken but not a liar, while emphasizing his own desire for a quiet and happy working environment. The internal friction persisted as the circus moved to Saudi Arabia, where Verstappen secured another clinical victory, but the off-track narrative remained a constant distraction. The third round of the championship took place at Albert Park in Melbourne, Australia. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with passionate fans eager to see if anyone could challenge the Red Bull dominance. Carlos Sainz arrived in Melbourne facing a massive physical challenge. Just 16 days prior, he had undergone emergency surgery for appendicitis.